All right. Well, it's 6:01. I think we've got most, or may still be some people trickling in, but uh, appreciate everyone coming on here tonight. We this meeting is for the East Army Post Road and Southeast 36th Street Roundabout project. This meeting, I want to start right off the bat, is being recorded. We're holding it by Zoom because obviously this is a major corridor and affects a lot of people. And so that we're recording the meeting so we could place a recording of that meeting on our city webpage, which I'll describe how to get to in a second here. But that way, if you know folks that miss that are unable to attend tonight, they can go back and watch the meeting, and obviously we have staff that can answer any follow-up questions as well. Um, Again, as I mentioned, this is my name is Steve Neighbor. I'm Des Moines city engineer, also Des Moines resident on the east side. I've got a handful of staff members, such as Matt Rodemacher and John Davis, and Dave Camp and Tom Block is on our engineering team here. I also appreciate we have our council member Joe Gatto on this meeting as well. And so thank you everyone for attending this. This is a meeting to kind of go through how this project's going to be constructed and what to expect. So,
I think Jim Ballard typed something in. I didn't catch it though.
Oh, okay. Let's see here.
I don't know.
He yeah, Jim is saying he's not hearing us. Let's see here. Think of how to let's see here. I mean, I don't know if maybe in the lower right on your computer there's a little microphone type looking icon. If maybe check to see if that got muted somehow.
Yeah, I can hear you really good, Steve. And
Okay.
I think someone else said that they can hear pretty good too. Jim, can you
Okay.
hear all right? Jim says yes. Maybe Jim Ballard's got to turn the volume up.
Okay. Well, I apologize, Jim, if something if we can't get the volume to work. Again, we are recording this meeting, and so I know you probably can't hear me, but we're gonna record it. I'll send you a message here that we you can always watch it later, worst case.
I'll text him and let him know that.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
So just as I mentioned before, this meeting is being recorded. We're holding it by Zoom because it does cover, it affects a lot of people in a good region. And so I'm going to give, and Matt Rodemacher and I are going to give a quick presentation, and then we're going to have time for questions. And so we ask that when it gets time for questions, that you raise your hand. And if you can see a little menu bar like that's shown on the screen here, there's a button there to raise your hand, and then we'll call on you to speak to try and keep the meeting in an orderly fashion. If you're on a phone, I'm not seeing anybody on a that's just calling in. It looks like most of you all are on smartphones or computers. But if you were on a phone, you can press *9 and that'll raise your hand, and unmute or unmute is *6. So, but otherwise, like I said, please use the menu bar to raise your hand when we get to that point there. I want to point out, and this is really good information for anywhere in the future. If you're interested on city projects or city CIP, you just go to the main webpage, dsm.city. And you can see here I circled it. It's called Projects Map. If you click on that projects map, that will take you to a map that shows basically like this, that shows our capital improvement projects. And so here, if you were to click on the circle, it pulls up this window, East Army Post Road and Southeast 36th Street Roundabout, and it tells you about the project, when it's when it's going to begin, end, and it's actually, if you scroll down in the window, it would also give you the direct contact of the project engineer if you have questions. Okay, so again, that's the city CIP. So if you were to click on that, you see the green line in the lower left. That would be the Caris-Cal Connector Trail, which is also was the connection to Carlisle. That project was just finished. If you clicked on that, it would pull up the information on that project. That's where you would start. And then there's also in this window would be a link to take you to the project webpage. Not all projects have their own web pages, but this one does, and that's where we would put our recording of tonight's meeting. So. All right, so the background of this project, we actually did a study of this East Army Post Road corridor in 2020. And that study looked at crash histories, took collected traffic data, speed data, and in this case, the existing intersection is a two-way stop controlled intersection, where East Army Post Road is a free flow, and then minor arterial roads connecting. And so it's a rural section. When we look the reason for the study, there has unfortunately been a history of severe crashes, and also this is an area that's developing, to say the least, and so more traffic is approaching the intersection, to say the least, and so and some of the crashes, you can see, that we said that with crash data, some of them were due to occurred in the nighttime. Others occurred from issues of sight distance. So the one thing that came out of the study, though, was speeding was definitely an issue at this intersection. If I recall, the speeds were the 85th percentile speeds were something to the effect of 7 miles an hour over the speed limit. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but that actually is an abnormal issue when you have 85% of the people are driving at that speed or below. That's really saying even the reasonable driver is speeding, is to put it lightly. And so the speeding is definitely an issue on this corridor. And so I see I think I got a couple hands up here.
Yeah, I was going to tell you, Steve, that Peggy had her hand up.
Okay, yep. All right, Peggy. Do you have a quick question?
Nope, sorry.
Oh, no worries. It's okay. We looked at a number of things. One being if we put in traffic signals with turn lanes, which would traditionally does help with operations as well as maintaining orderly traffic. But when we compare it to roundabouts, roundabouts have been proven time and time again to be the much safer alternative, especially for injury crashes and fatal crashes. As we know with traffic signals, when we have an area like this, high speeds, if people run the red lights, which unfortunately sometimes people do, bad things happen. So traffic signals aren't always the end all. And so this is kind of shows the comparison of data when you compare traffic signals versus the modern roundabouts, and you can see substantial crash reductions from installing roundabouts. So, and it's not even just this, the safety aspect is the number one reason, but actually when you look at a long-term operational aspect, a traffic signal costs a lot more, from electricity to maintenance to having staff have to go out there and maintain the signals and go with it. So this is a life cycle cost analysis. So it's not safety is number one reason, but it's not just safety is why a roundabout is being recommended here. Again, when we talk about safety, roundabouts nearly eliminate those severe broadside left turn type crashes. And so, in other words, and for example, we had 2 roundabouts put up at Broadway at East 38th and East 46th Street. Unfortunately, shortly before those projects, a few years before those projects, we lost one of our teenagers due to a crash where the teens unfortunately misjudged a gap and a truck was coming and they were broadsided. And so that's the type of crashes that roundabouts are looking to eliminate. And the goal is to slow people down. And we had some questions from residents that have heard about the project in the news and so on. And one of the questions was this corridor gets a lot of truck traffic. So how will they navigate this roundabout? Well, this roundabout design has a 151-foot inscribed circle. And so it's designed and modeled for those 73-foot long semi-tractor trailers. And to give you kind of a reference, as an example, the roundabouts on Broadway, which Broadway on the northeast side of Des Moines is a truck route. They have been in operation for 9 months, and they're 140-foot inscribed circle. And so this is a bigger roundabout than those. It's also, quite frankly, when this intersection came up on, in terms of the study, this area reminds me a lot of my hometown. I grew up in Bettendorf, and they put a roundabout at Middle Road and 53rd Avenue. It's been there for 25 years, almost an identical situation in an area of vibrant new development right off of Interstate 80. And so that roundabout's been in existence for about 25 years. Again, heavy actually more traffic than this, and right off Interstate 80. And in fact, they're actually adding more roundabouts. They just added one last year on the same corridor because it's been successful. And so very similar situation. And that roundabout is 140 feet. This one is 151. It's larger primarily because of that we need to really reduce the speeds on this corridor, and so to really force the cars to get to that 15-mile-an-hour travel speed around the roundabout here. There's kind of the dimensions. This is kind of a cross-section view of what it'll look like. You see we have a truck apron that's called out as 12 feet. It's the red concrete. So again, this is similar to the roundabouts that are up Broadway. There's also some of these in Johnston and around. There's some in Pleasant Hill, but they're pretty common to have a truck apron. And so what that is to allow larger trucks, tractor trailers, to navigate the roundabout. They can actually traverse over the mountable 4-inch curb onto the apron if they need to make the turning movement. But yet we still keep that apron with the curb to try and make a sharper turn for the passenger cars to try and slow people down. Okay. And so then you see in this case, there'll be landscaping in the middle of the roundabout. This will be there. Let me see if I have so here's an image of a roundabout that's in Ames. That this is essentially kind of what the roundabout will look like in terms of, with grass in the middle and grasses and then landscaping in the middle. So, and obviously with the project, we have engineers do a photometric design to add new lighting all around the roundabout, light up that section as well. That's kind of what the project is. And now that most of it, Matt Rodemacher, I'm able to call on you to talk about it, what's going to happen during construction here in the timeline.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Steve. So for construction, the contractor is looking to start up here in about a month or so. So tentatively around early April, they'll be firing things up. We will be having a couple CMS boards. So the digital message boards will be placed out there a week in advance to make sure everyone's aware of the upcoming work and knows of just the detours to expect. As you can see on the screen, the project will require a closure of the intersection. So we have a detour route taking the bypass around over to Southeast 14th to Army Post. And then for the traffic that more local, we'll be detouring Southeast 36 over on Pine Avenue up to Indianola Avenue and Peyton Avenue. So one of the things we did look at when we were considering detouring traffic and was how fast can we get this thing built? So there was two different options that really came down to play. We had one, get this thing cranked out in a year, which requires closing the road down, having this detours, which we know is not ideal for anyone. The other option was a 2-year construction period. So with that, we actually used Federal Highway has a cost analysis worksheet to go through, which looks at work zone delays, vehicle operating costs, detour delays. And by the time you look at the detour, the time delays associated with the detour, and then also on the other side, the temporary pavement and barrier rails that are needed to get this thing done while keeping the road open to traffic. We're actually, it's about a $750,000 difference in road user costs. So we did end up selecting the 1-year option with the detour routes. Obviously, there's some other alternatives that would won't be signed for local traffic, but that local traffic could utilize. But the 2 routes that you see will be signed for any sort of commuter traffic coming through. And as I mentioned, this is something that's going to be starting in about with about a month or so, and the project is going to be, or the roads will be open back up this late this fall. It will go into next spring slightly with just some minor restoration next year, because this will be going into late fall, as I mentioned, but it is a 1-year job in general to substantial completion with just that final plantings and seedings and sodding and such this coming spring. And that's really what to expect during construction. Here's a quick little overview of the project schedule. As I mentioned, starting up here soon, wrapping up here this late fall, and then we'll do a final restoration next year.
So let me ask you, will the road be open in November of this year? Will they be able to use it and then come back in the spring construction and finish whatever details we got to do? Or are they going to have to do this all winter? Next year?
Nope. The plan is to have this thing open up before snow starts flying in November. So,
okay.
Yep. This is a 1 construction season, and anything that's going on next year will be very minor, nothing that will impact traffic.
Okay. I think that's important to point out, because I knew that, but it wasn't clear how you were saying it.
And thank you for bringing attention to that.
Yeah. So essentially the paving work would be done, and that way the road would be open Thanksgiving, and then in the spring they would just come back to do like the seeding, and if there's, say, maybe more permanent pavement markings that need to be put down or something that's like temporary, So, yeah. Okay. Right. And actually, I know that's pretty quick, but that's really what we have from a slide standpoint. Again, I'm very excited to get this project going. For folks that, in terms of the funding, the cost for the whole intersection rebuild is about $2.2 million. But we did receive $500,000 from the DOT because they have deemed this to be, concur with the traffic safety improvements we're doing. So we got $500,000 in traffic safety funds coming to help support this project. With the speed, I'm seeing speeds here and the amount of development that's occurring. We also do have some of our students that go head east to southeast to Carlisle in these areas, and so definitely excited to get this project going and make this area safer and slow down. So that we're going to questions, and so again, as I mentioned, if you could raise your hand. And we'll start off with Jim Martin. Jim, if we can have you unmute. Yeah.
Hello. Thanks for hosting us, and thanks for having us. Really appreciate your information about the safety. I think there's a lot of questions that many of us have that didn't grow up with roundabouts, and why the heck do they do those? So that was interesting stuff to know. I served on the Planning and Zoning Commission back in 2007, 2008, and we were part of the zoning for all of this territory. So just off the top of my head, there's going to be over 982 or more dwelling units developed along that Army Post corridor. So a couple of questions that I have derived from that. It's hard for me to imagine how that's not going to be a 4-lane road, with development at hand. I try to keep in mind the city's philosophy that they weren't going to have infrastructure dictate development. It was the other way around. They're going to have development dictate infrastructure. But with those plans at hand and this roundabout, I'm having trouble figuring out how it's not going to be a 4-lane adventure before too long. So I'll let you answer that question before I get to the other ones, which are simpler.
Yep. So actually the study looked at kind of traffic projections and kind of that future build out. And one thing to note that there wasn't any anticipation to build a 4-lane road. It would have been, it's looking at more of a 3-lane concept. Now, in this case, with the roundabouts, we wouldn't need them. And roundabouts like these actually function at higher operation levels than a traffic signal. And so, for example, and I know it's hard. I use the reference of the Bettendorf 53rd Avenue and Middle Road. It's almost identical, but about 20 years from, like, when they put that roundabout in, that area looked like what this is, and now it's completely engulfed in housing all the way around in quadrants. And they actually just built but about 5 years ago, built the TBK sports complex, a $41 million sports complex with a Top Golf that's going in there. So the traffic volumes there are enormous, and that's a single lane roundabout. So operationally, this will handle quite a bit of traffic, and a 3-lane road can actually handle up to 20,000 vehicles a day. So we got quite a bit of room there. And I see if I can pull up traffic data numbers. I don't know if
I asked the same thing, Jim, when we started this process. So I know what you're thinking. Maybe.
And as you're
I
digging
wasn't a
those
big-
out,
I wasn't a big fan of roundabouts either until I seen it function, and it will function well, and it will be very helpful there, and it'll be much safer.
and my other questions while you're digging that out, and then I'll turn it over to the rest of you. What are you looking at for a speed limit along that corridor? As I recall, it's 50 right now, is it not? And what is it going to be reduced down to?
Yeah, don't pull that up there.
I didn't ask that question. That's a good question.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm on a brain freeze. I'm pulling it up, and it's either 50 or 55. Is it 55 to the east? I think some of the issues are, if I recall, is 55, but yet people are actually traveling at an 85th percentile of 62.
My wife is saying it is 55, and then once you get into, much deeper into Army Post, then it switches down to 50.
Right. So that's the biggest issue is, and while people might say, well, these 62 versus 55 doesn't sound big, but unfortunately that is basically saying, as I think I mentioned earlier, the 85th percentile, that is what's considered kind of the reasonable majority of drivers. And so we're saying almost the majority of drivers are driving 77 miles an hour over the speed limit less, is not a good thing.
So Steve, what are we going to leave it at 55, or do you look at like dialing it down to 45 through this whole corridor?
Typically, that's I'm trying to find if there was any recommendations from the study. Typically, what we do is we put in the improvements to fit the physical improvements to try and slow people down, and then evaluate what should the speed limit be lowered. But certainly, going down to 45 would be, I guess, a hope to get there. Yeah, hold on.
I can't imagine coming up on this roundabout going any faster than 45.
No, you won't be. The roundabouts are designed 15 miles an hour.
Right.
So, yeah. So
But you're gonna have to slow down well before the concrete separation.
you won't have a choice. I mean, that's why we put the curve,
Right,
and deflection in there. Right. Let me try and pull up the traffic here real quick here. Unless there are any folks that from our traffic that are on that have,
well, you got 4 staff members. They can't find the answer for you.
for the me, yeah. Oh, there we go.
I mean, I can't believe John Davis isn't just rattling that off the top of his head.
Steve, I think we'll probably be looking at reducing it down to 45 mile an hour at some point.
There you go.
Well, the traffic counts are showing about 7,500 to 8,000 vehicles a day, and a 3-lane can handle about 20,000. So we would need to, multiply the traffic times 2.5 to really, get to where we would
We'll
be.
get there, Jim. We just might be dead by then.
That would, yeah. Even then, to be honest with you, a road like this that's controlled, that we can plan with the development. The corridor plan actually proposes a roundabout in the future at 3 lakes, So a series of them. And so when we kind of have with the planned access points, these roads will function even at a higher level than what you would see on a 3-lane road where there's a whole bunch of driveways all the way across that. So, yep. So John answered the goal. Looks like the goal is 45 miles an hour is what you're looking for. And Jim, I appreciate the comments on the safety and and again, when you think about a roundabout, our most severe crashes are speed related, and then you think about those broadside crashes when you're making a left-hand turn. That's what the roundabouts you virtually eliminate. And so when I think about my oldest is 14, and so I've been having the fun of driving with him. And I would rather have my son turn on a roundabout all day, any day, every day than a traffic signal that's, especially on a road like this. We've got to slow people down here. So let's see here. We got some hands up here. Mark Francisco. Mark, if you can have you unmute there.
Hi, thank you for having the meeting and answering our questions today. Really appreciate that. We're located at the first house west of the intersection, with the exception of the one that's right on the intersection there. And my first question is, we've been in the city for about 37 years, but water service is very limited. And our closest fire hydrant is located on that at that corner. Will the fire department have access to that fire hydrant for the entire duration of the construction?
Good question. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so with the widening of the road there at South, as you approach the on the south leg of the roundabout, as you approach the intersection, it widens out. So there, that at that hydrant, we are going to be shifting it east a little bit. So there's going to be about a 2-day period or so when that work's taking place, that it will be out of service. This is something that's been communicated with the fire chief. So he's aware of what to expect. And then as we approach that time period, he'll be given further notice so he can keep his staff up to speed on what to expect as well.
So Matt, other than when the work is directly working on the fire hydrant, you said it mentioned a couple days, the fire department will have access. They can go between the barricades and just access the site every other day. It's just
that's 100.
Yeah,
that's 100% the intent. And the chief mentioned, there's other options as long as he's kept in the loop and kept aware. So that's not something that's going to be detrimental even for those 2 days. It's just that, communication is key, and keeping him up to speed is no concern on his part as long as he's kept aware.
And that's kind of normal with, we even do projects where we reconstruct entire corridors, replacing the whole water main and all the fire hydrants. And so you'd have a whole bunch of them where we would be coordinating with the fire department as they're getting replaced. There's that coordination. So in this case,
it's worth noting, I believe it's next fiscal year, Steve, that water will be ran all the way down to the animal hospital, all the way down past Southeast 45th. So there will be water throughout the corridor. When 10 years ago, some places of this had water, some had sewer. At least now, that's why we anticipate some development, that all of the parcels will have access to Des Moines water and sewer. And so we should start seeing some development in this area.
Is that the entire duration or entire length of Army Post to Southeast 45th, or just from Southeast 36th to 45th?
If you don't have it now, you will have it when we run it all the way down there.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's kind of exciting news. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's coming.
Yep. Councilman's right.
I have a couple more questions. Can I go ahead and ask those now, or do you want me to raise my hand again, or how do you want to do that?
I'll have you ask him just a sec, Mark, but the councilman is correct. He had put in the budget there as we have a fiscal year 27, which is next year, starting
July of next year.
Yep. It is actually loop a water main. It would go from Southeast 36 down to 45th and then loop around to connect, to kind of provide that whole service to this area that doesn't have it. And so, as the councilman mentioned, so east of Southeast 36 currently doesn't have water main, and so that's the intent of that project there. So
nor does west of Southeast 36. We live west of Southeast 36 and do not have water today.
Yeah. Okay.
You will.
No, that's all right, Mark. Go on. I'll just cut you off there, Mark. You got additional?
No, I appreciate it. So our house is just west of the diagram that you have on there right now. Will we continue to have access to the property throughout the entire construction period?
Yep, you certainly will. Obviously there might be some barricades that you'll be might have to drive around, but in that circumstance, we usually just stagger them so that local traffic can get through, but you will have continuous access.
Okay. My last question, the power lines that serve our house, our house is the only one served by it, also our communication lines. They run along the right of way from Southeast 36 over to the west to our house. Is there any plan to relocate those or any planned interruption to the power service during this construction?
Mid-Am is going to be undergrounding the electric right along where this project runs. They're pretty good. Mid-Am's one of the better utilities as far as keeping communication with their with customers. If there was any outage, they limit that to an extremely short period. That's been something they do often on a lot of our construction projects. And they usually are able to get that communicated in advance. And they even work around schedules a lot of time when there's critical needs with businesses and residents and such.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, as we've already discussed, we're relying on the electricity just to have water service here for a pump and for medical equipment. So we want to make sure that was planned out if there was going to be any changes there.
Yep, if it was, it'd be very short intermittent and you'd be made aware well in advance. And it's not something that's going to be days, it's something that's hours.
Okay. Thank you.
And Matt, do you see Mark's contact information to log in? He's at, yeah, I see which house he's at.
Yeah, it's 3417.
Yep, and I actually just saw your email here just before I hopped in the meeting, Mark. So I got your information as well.
That way you guys are connected, because obviously as the project gets closer, being that close to the project, that'd be good to have Matt's direct contact. So very good.
Good job, Steve. Thank you.
All right, I see.
One more question.
Lauren Kane.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Thanks for having this meeting. I have a question or a comment to make about the detour routing. Are you able to pull that exhibit up?
Absolutely. Let me go to it. There you go.
So the only point I would like you guys to take into consideration, I live in 3 Lakes East and I use Pine Avenue every day, twice a day to go to and from work. My concern is that with this intersection being closed, there's already people that I know avoid Army Post and take Pine Avenue from Southeast 45th to Indianola, and they speed. There's people that will speed down that road just so they can drive faster than 55. And my concern is that people will catch on to that they can get around this intersection that way. And there are driveways off of Pine Avenue and there's residential roadways that come off of Pine Avenue that go to 3 Lakes. So is there a way that can be patrolled or somehow controlled that people are not doing that?
Yes, and so I really appreciate the comments, and that's a great idea. And I will talk to our traffic unit at the police, and we'll have. That's a great idea. I think a key would be having maybe enhanced enforcement right up front. Once it starts to really, I hate to say it, but maybe set the tone, if you will. People, learn their lesson.
Right.
And so Lauren, I think that's a great idea. So I am actually going to put in a request from our traffic unit.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yep.
Tom has a question, Steve. Looks like.
All right. Tom Voss.
Yeah, I have a question on Southeast 36th, south of Army Post. Is the intent to pave that? Because it looks like half of it's going to get paved with this project, but then you're gonna have half of it still dirt?
It didn't, to answer your question, yeah, this project only has the funds to pave exactly what you see on the diagram. So it would not pave all the way down this time, so.
I guess that's a
don't-
question for Joe Gatto then. What's the plan there, Joe?
Second, Tom, the plan is, hopefully that it'll be developed by then. And then the developer would pave that area. That's typically why it hasn't been done yet, but there's a lot of land around there that can be developed, especially once we put the utilities in there that are needed. And so as we move forward, that's been the plan, going forward.
Oh, sorry, it seems a little silly. We're gonna pave half of it and then leave half of it unpaved.
The challenge though,
Well,
Tom, is kind of what it's kind of say how the chicken and egg thing, but as the councilman mentioned, when the development comes in, we could see how their road network will be and then what this would be, right? And so quite frankly, if there's not the funds to say, let's reconstruct it all the way down to Pine with curbs and gutters and sidewalks or whatever trails or whatever things that go with it. So as development comes in, then that could set the curb line of how the road will be. And I don't know if that's the development will help us, I guess, shape what the road is. In terms and also as the councilman mentioned, put it in with curb lines in, which are quite frankly the most expensive, I mean, to do. So
And that's why we're putting the utilities down there. So we will, right now, no one's going down there to develop. You don't have water. Parts of it didn't have sewer. That's why the road's in the situation that it's in. Now, after July of next year, when we have those, then I believe that it'll be different. And I think that people will look at that area differently and we will see development. Because
It just seems silly that we're only.
I
doing
understand
half.
what you think, Tom.
I know.
I get it. You know that we've had to cut $17 million out of our budget.
I know.
And you know that I've had this in the budget for how long we've been talking about it, Steve? 4 years.
yeah.
And so,
Well, and we
know,
also have needs, the councilman is on the chair of the MPO committee and has gotten millions to help fund the reconstruction of East Army posts between Southeast 14th and Indianola. So really, we're actually starting there and working our way east from a reconstruction standpoint. So that road is still rural today and needs curbs and needs, quite frankly, to be reconstructed.
Sewer.
Yeah, and sewer. And so that's really where the money is going. And fortunately, we were able to secure millions to help pay for that project, where Southeast 36 would not be eligible for the federal funding that we secured, for example, for East Army Post due to its classification. Now, maybe if it develops around there and then the classification changes, then that could be something to consider, I guess. But
Yeah, so-
yeah.
4 years ago, when I was the chair of the MPO, we were able to get that portion of it from Indianola to Southeast 14th in the queue, city dollars put in, and then get federal dollars to also help us with that. And so we're going to start at the East 14th, and we are going to make our way all the way down there.
Yep.
And the developers are going to help with some of those other areas, like you're talking about, Southeast 36. I know it seems silly, but it is a dollar amount, and there is other priorities other than that.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks for asking, though. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
They're asking about some East Carlisle buses, and then Easter Lake. There's some on the chat.
Oh, here we go.
The-
Carlisle bus travel from Easter Lake through East Hart.
3 Lakes. I think it's what it said.
Add time to route. That's something I thought we'll actually have to get that from their transportation director. That's the Carlisle buses travel from Easter Lake through East Hart to 45th, detouring Indianola to East Pine will add time. I mean,
And
we're
it's-
not gonna stop them, you know, and quite frankly, turning at 45th, is no different than turning at East 36 now. So, I mean, they could do that. Those roads will be open. We just aren't posting it as a detour, just because of the, you know,
You'll contact the Carlisle schools though, right, Steve? And,
Oh,
and
yeah,
check
yeah.
it and make sure that they are understanding
Yep.
where they can and can't go. And you're
That's
right.
right.
They can go straight down Pine and up 45th, can't they?
yeah, they could. Yeah.
Okay.
But whether they choose to, that I guess I'd have to, but we'll definitely talk to them about that. So,
Right.
yeah, thank you, Matt, and thank you, Peggy. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for participating. I hope it answered a lot of questions. I know this project's been it's been a long time coming as for the safety issues, and I think that we're on the right track. You know, our engineering department, I was probably the one that fought this the most, putting a roundabout. You can ask Steve. I was like, this is crazy. And I don't think this is until I actually used them in other parts of the country and then in other parts of our region. And it does work good. And I would want my 14-year-old or anyone driving to Carlisle schools, instead of a traffic signal, I would want them to use this because they're going to have to get used to it because it's going to be, it's going to go in all over the country. And, you know, what better way to figure out, you know, the best way to travel on is when it's in your backyard and having your parents with you. So,
Absolutely.
like I said, I appreciate everybody logging on. If you have any other questions or concerns, please, I think everyone has my email address. It's listed on the city website. And, you know, we can always talk to Steve. If there's any concerns during the project, you know what? My phone is on the city website. You can call me. You can call the project manager. I'm sure that whoever lives out by there, you know, as far as garbage and things like that, I know there's Mark that lives by there. If you have any issues, just contact me. And, you know, they did it on McKinley and we'll get through it. And I know it's going to be a pain for a little bit. The good thing is that we didn't make it 2 years. You know, this is one construction cycle. It's basically 6 months. You get 6 weeks this spring of school, and then probably, you know, 2 to 3 months of the school next year with the buses. But by winter, they'll be able to go up and down, you know, Army posts. So that's a good thing. Thanks
Thank you
again,
so much,
Steve.
Councilman. And now, actually, I'm going to do one quick demonstration here. I just want to show the councilman mentioned how to contact. So, can everyone see the web page now? Is that showing up?
Yep.
Okay. So this is our city homepage, the main page, dsm.city. Scroll down right there, project map. Okay. You can see here, we got a bunch of work going on. So there's a lot of projects, but you just zoom down to the area, or you can type in an address if you wanted to. There's a little icon. Click on the icon. See, it tells you about the project. Even says Manats is a big contractor that got this job. And then it most importantly shows you where it's in the CIP, gives you a direct contact with the project engineer. Then if you click on more info, okay, that takes you to the actual page for this project where we'll post the video. So if you have any friends that missed this, this is how they can get there. So I just wanted to show that for everyone. So, but as the councilman said, thank you so much. I appreciate y'all taking time every evening, and hopefully you all stay safe in this wild weather that we always get during girls' state basketball, unfortunately. So, yeah. So thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you. Appreciate y'all.